Okay, so $1. A barrel that was fractured and one coated it with dung. Even though one removes the dung from the fragments, and fragments fall apart, it is tummy. It has never lost its designation as a utensil. If the barrel broke and one glued its fragments together, or if one brought fragments from elsewhere and then coated them with dung, even though one removes the dung and the fragments remain together, it is tahor, since it lost its designation as a utensil. If it had a fragment that can contain a quarter log, the entire barrel emits truma via contact, and opposite that fragment transmits truma via airspace. If one coats a sound earthenware utensil, Reb Meir or Shimon rule the coating tame, but the sages say if one coats, but the sages say if one coats a sound utensil, then the coating is tahor. But if one coats a fractured utensil, the coating is tame, and the same applies to the reinforcements of a gourd shell. Okay.
Okay. Hold on. No, you also do 6, yeah.
6, right? The Yablis used to no, this is yours, I think.
No, we did this yesterday.
The Yablis used to cold pithol, right? That which touches is tame. The stopper of a barrel, that's right. The stopper of a barrel is not regarded as connected, and that which touches the coating of an oven is tame. Okay, got it. Okay.
Mecham is an urn, a boiler, right? So there are two different types of material. Chomer, which they've translated here as mortar, and charsis is potter's clay. One is chomer is a more substantial material that's being used to coat and insulate the urn, and charsis is somewhat less sticky. So if the meicham became tame, then if somebody touches the chomer, it becomes tame. But the charsis, the potter's clay, is considered tahor. It's not considered a permanent appendage of the boiler because it doesn't stick as well and it decays off quickly. Okay. So that part is not considered an attachment. Kum is a we've got here a kettle, and it's and it became there's an earthenware kettle we're talking about. Okay, okay. So it became punctured. It got a hole in it, and he came in and repaired it with pitch. Now we've come across this case of a kli that was repaired with pitch before. Okay, Rabbi Yossi Mataher, he says in the previous case when we had a kli that got a hole and got repaired with pitch, we said okay, that still becomes tame. But the difference that we have over here is that this over here is something that's meant to deal with hot, and the heat is going to start degrading the pitch. Okay, says Rabbi Yossi. This is not the whole kli is still tahor, even though you could use it for cold, but it was intended for use with hot, and now it can't be used for hot anymore, and therefore the whole kli remains tahor. And he said the same thing with an entire kli that was made out of zephyrs, out of pitch. Okay, beg your pardon. That is how he ruled with utensils of pitch. He said that's they are all tahor because they don't hold, they won't last as something that holds hot. However, if it's made intentionally for cold, that would still be cold. Okay. That would still be tameh. He says when you have copper keilim that were fixed up with pitch, these are also tahor. But if they were made for wine, if they were specifically made for wine and not for anything that's meant to be hot, then they become tameh because the entire intention is to be used with cold, and cold doesn't affect the pitch. It's not going to degrade, and now it's a good enough kli to be tameh.
Why is there a difference between something cold water and wine? Is there something in the wine that?
No. It's just your typical use case. You don't typically have a copper vessel that's set aside for water.
Right.
It's more chashuv. So okay. It's not that there's something different about wine and not water. It's just like this is your most common use case.
Okay.
Okay. Chabesh shenikva. Okay, your barrel, or I keep reminding myself that could be an amphora again because I keep thinking of wooden barrels. We're talking about it.
That's what I think of too. As soon as I hear barrel, I think of wine can.
Yeah. Okay. Shenikva, okay, you got a hole. V'asa b'zefes yater mitzorka. So he fixed it up with pitch, but he put more than it required. So he made one of those sort of an amateur job, let's say. Okay, so now if the kli became tame, hanogea b'tzorka, if it touches the part that is necessary to fix the hole, tame. Yaseh mitzorka tahor. But if he touches part of the pitch that was just smeared all over, that wasn't really performing any function, that's not part of the key, and therefore it's still tahor.
All right.
Okay. Zefes shenatfa al hachavis. Now, what happens if the zefes dripped? Okay, if it dripped onto the amphora. Now this seems like a completely self-evident, because if it's not, if we just spoke about now things that weren't necessary. So if something just dripped onto it, then why would you ever think that it's that it would be tamei, that the Mishnah has to come and tell you that it's tahor? So article as usual comes up with a commentary over here. It says at the bottom of page 214 in the commentary, this ruling is actually self-evident. Okay. So the Tana is teaching in the style of Ein Tzarich Lomar, and of course, you don't need to mention it. So it's kind of a fallback position, because you don't really want to say that the Mishnah is stating something obvious and it's just using the style of Ein Tzarich Lomar, but it just didn't happen to mention those words. Or alternatively, it says that it may be that this ruling isn't a chiddush, because according to Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon of Mishnah Hay, there they maintain that an unnecessary coating applied to a utensil is still treated as part of the kli, and therefore does contract tumah along with the utensil. In our case, it agreed that where it's simply dripped on it by accident, it does not contract tumah. So the chiddush there is that even Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon would agree with this particular case. Okay. Mashbech, back to our funnel. Shel eitz, if it's made of wood or earthenware, shepekako bezefes, and he stopped it up with pitch. Okay, he put a pitch on the narrow end so that it could now be a container. So now, is this considered a kli that it's makabel tumah? Remember, we said a funnel before. A householder's funnel is tahor because it just lets things through. It's not a container.
I was thinking the same thing before you even said it, that it would be makabel tumah.
Good. Glad you're remembering that. Okay, good. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Matame, he says, okay, this has now become a full-blown kli, and it's now makabel tumah. Rabbi Kiva Matame b'shel eitz u'matahar b'shel cheres. Now he makes a distinction between wood and earthenware. Why does he make such a distinction? Because the pitch is from vegetable matter, and it sticks better onto the wood. So it's more of so it makes more of a permanent seal on a wooden funnel, but not so much on the earthenware one. Okay, and he says the earthenware one would still be tahor. Rabbi Yossi Matar b'shneim, he says it's pitch. It's not meant to be a permanent thing. He's just stopping it up temporarily. This isn't going to remain a kli forever. Okay, and the halacha follows the view of Rabbi Akiva that there's a distinction between wood and earthenware. Okay, Mishnah Aleph Perek Dalet. Okay, okay, so remember we spoke about gistra, the piece that broke off, right? A kli that was makabel tumah and then it broke, and now you've got shards that can hold something in it. We said those are still tamei. Okay, but now we've got one of these shards over here that happens to have the handle attached. So if it's resting on the ground, it tips over. Like you could hold it and by the handle underneath, and you'd be able to hold stuff inside it. So now the question is this actually a usable kli? Because if you put it down, it's going to spill. Okay? Whether it's a handle or whether it's a sharp piece on the edge that it can't stand in the way that it normally would. This is called tahor. It's not a usable kli. If you can't put it down, if you have to hold it in your hand in order to make it hold things, that's not considered a kli. Nitla ha'ozin, however, if you broke off that handle or the sharp piece, unishbar chidud, tahor, it still remains tahor, because once it's lost the shem kli, says the Tanakama, it doesn't become a kli again just because you broke off the handle. But Rabbi Yehuda is matame. Okay, he says that this is a different case, because it really was a kli all the time. It was able to contain. So it's not like you took previously we said if you took shards that wouldn't hold together and you glued them together, we said that doesn't make a difference because it lost the shame of a kli. But Rabbi Yehuda is coming and saying this never lost the shame of a kli. It just had a technical issue that it couldn't sit right, and therefore it would fall over. But now it's become a kli again. And now we see an interesting reversal in the end of the Mishnah where chavis shenifchasa, so a barrel whose bottom fell out. So you had an amphora, the jug, the bottom broke. V'hi mekabeles al dofnoseha. Okay, and now it's if you rest it on its side, it can still hold liquids. Or shenechlecha kamin shtei arivot. So it got split in half, and now you've got two halves lying on the ground. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda matayir v'chachamim matamin. So now it's a reversal where now Rabbi Yehuda says this is not a kli anymore. Why is Rabbi Yehuda suddenly coming and saying this is not a kli? Because Rabbi Yehuda's shita is that when you have a kli that broke and you want to see if it's still makabel tuma, it still has to be able to be makabel whatever it holds in the same orientation that it was before. Okay. So it has to fall on its side in order to hold something where previously it was standing upright. Says Rabbi Yehuda, that's not a kli anymore. Chachamim say it doesn't make a difference. If it can hold a liquid, it can hold a liquid, and it doesn't matter if it's on its side or not. Okay, and halacha follows the Chachamim, and that is it for today. I'm going to run timing.
We'll speak to you later. Should I just do it myself, or
you can do it yourself because I'm
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Bye.